Good evening, brethren. I'm Dr. Manganyi. I'm a social worker by profession, a lecturer, and by God's grace, I'm a PhD holder from the University of Limpopo. I'm a child of God. I'm submitted to Mana Tabernacle of Witness under the guardianship of my senior pastor, Pastor Reckson Manganyi, and our overseer, Pastor Reckson Manganyi. Today, I would want us to talk about this one interesting subject, the subject of mental health. This subject is very close to our pastor's heart, and it is out of his interest that this subject, was born, that we should, during these trying times of our country, we should be looking at the subject of mental health. One may ponder and ask, what is mental health? Of what significance is this subject of mental health? Mental health is a very interesting subject because it has to do with how one thinks, how one feels, how one reacts when he's confronted with challenges. And I'm sure you'll agree that as a country, we are confronted with a situation, and how we think, we feel, and how we respond to it is, what happens to us every day. If you look into psychological books, theories, they will always tell you that when you are confronted with stressful situations and life-threatening situations, there's two ways about it. It's how you respond to it that could be positive. And if it's positive, we say you are adapting well to the situation. The other way is negative. In other words, you are maladaptive. You are not responding effectively to that situation. But let's go back a little bit and begin to ask ourselves what it means to respond positively, what it means to respond negatively. Is it possible to respond positively in a life-threatening situation? Is it possible? When you look at literature, they will tell you it is possible. Possible how? They say a situation that could be life-threatening, how you respond to it will differ, in one person to another. One person confronted with the same situation would be able to cope. One person confronted with the same situation, he will be overwhelmed. And the question would always be, what is the difference? Three most effective styles of dealing with stresses are already known. We often talk about confrontative, supportive, and optimistic. These three are said to define how most of us would go about, coping with situations that are life-threatening. If you are confrontative, what do you do when you're confronted with a situation? When you need support, when you are confronted with a situation, how do you then cope? If you are an optimist, equally, it's, how do you then cope? But let's look at the last one, because it's become very interesting. You are confronted with a situation, this situation is life-threatening, but you choose to be optimistic about it. It could be that you are going to die. You could have been involved in an accident. You could have been diagnosed with a dreadful disease, and your life is at stake. But you choose to look at the positive side of it. Yes, it could be a reality that you're going to die, but you're not dead yet. It's a reality that you might not necessarily recover from such situation. But bad thing is, at that point in time, you are still there. And you use whatever opportunity, to speak hope to your life. People around you might not necessarily understand that part. One example comes to mind of two boys who were hunting. One behind sees a rabbit in front, and mind you, these two boys are hunting with guns or rifles. Without thinking, the one behind decided to take an aim of that rabbit. Did he kill the rabbit? No. He almost blown out the head of the friend. The ear was ripped off, and part of, his skull went away with a bullet. Scary. The boy is hospitalized, fighting for his life, surgery, theater, all these processes. But all the time, when this boy is lying there, he's thanking God that he's still alive. At least it's only an ear that has been blown away. His head, his brain are still intact. And he knows his friend so dearly that his friend will not do anything to hurt him. Whatever has happened, it was just a mistake. That's, how one can remain optimistic, amidst adversities. You remain hopeful in a situation that's hopeless. And this brings home my own personal experience with COVID-19. Let the truth be told. When I got my results after the testing, a medical doctor standing and communicating these results, he indicated that my results were back and I was positive. I couldn't comprehend what was to follow. I thought, this is it. I'm finished. But then, a silent voice started saying something to me, started communicating something to me. I begin to remember that, this doctor did not communicate anything that I did not expect. After taking the tests, I knew the results were coming. But I remain optimistic that the results will come back negative. And I had put, and a contingency plan in mind to say when the results come, if they are negative, well and good, I'll go home. If they come back positive, well, there's hope. There are chances that one could still recover from this. There are chances that, one will not necessarily die. And, being the believer that I am, you begin to say, when you're confronted with this, it's not necessarily all about being optimistic. Because sometimes being optimistic can be mistaken for denial. It's like you see the situation, you know what it is, and you choose not to accept it. Because it's too much for your mind to comprehend. You can't deal with it. But the truth be told, when you are optimistic, you are not necessarily in denial. You know what is at stake. The results are in black and white before you. But what you are doing here, you are choosing, to be optimistic about a situation that, doesn't necessarily give you any hope. And this brings home one other factor. When there's no one to encourage you, we read of so many characters in the Bible that, so and so encouraged himself. Being optimistic sometimes can be equated, equal to one encouraging oneself. In situations that are hopeless, you give yourself hope. Because it's in you giving yourself hope that others begin to, gain their strength. While I was thinking about me and, what was happening in my situation, one thing, the shift suddenly changed. You have to begin to think about the loved ones. I could only, shift my whole being to think, well, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about myself. I'm thinking about what is to happen to me, what is to come. Is it only me who will be affected by this whole situation? It is in that you begin to shift. That's where you begin to see the other part of how to cope, dealing with stress. When you talk about support, you begin to say, by the way, I have a family. By the way, I have a wife. By the way, I have children. If I'm so devastated by my own condition, how is it going to affect the people around me? And therefore, you begin to move. You cease to be important. You begin to think very low of yourself and begin to prioritize other people who might equally need support. Support that you need, it's the support that they need. And coming to think of it, sometimes when you are confronted with a stressful situation, you only think you are the only one who is affected. But the truth be told, stressful situation that confront you, in the other way around, equally affects the people around you. Maybe it even affects them more. Can you think about divorce, for instance? As partners who are involved, who are separating, you might even think that, this thing is going to disintegrate your lives, it's going to change your life patterns and everything else. Think for a moment how this whole thing will affect your family, how it will affect your children. The house they have lived all their lives might be put on sale. They may have to move from town to a township. In a worst case scenario, even have to move to a village, having to go and establish new friends, living in the new environment. That can be very stressful to children. To an extent, children end up, in drugs, drinking excessively, manifesting behaviors that we cannot even begin to comprehend. Truth be told, mental health is very, very critical in humans' life. And coming to think of it, if there's one part of our body that is overworked, sometimes not even given a break, it's human's mind. And in concluding my presentation, I would take you to this small journey that I have used that is very helpful in trying to help your mental health. Have you ever thought of giving your mind a short vacation? In mental health, it is encouraged that at least in a day, all of us, where possible, we should be able to give ourselves at least a 5 minutes vacation. Each one of us should be able to at least give his mind a mini vacation of at least 5 minutes. How do you do this? You can get into your car, close the windows. You can even switch off your music. For these 5 minutes, you don't listen to anything. You don't even listen to your heartbeat. You shut everything else down. You stop thinking. Doesn't matter the situation that you find yourself in. For 5 minutes, just leave it all out. Maybe we can say you're giving it to God. At least for 5 minutes, you stop thinking about it, trying to come up with a way around it. You just give your mind a vacation. If you do that once a day, you'll be giving yourself and giving your mind a treatment that no doctor can give. This one is free and is very effective. Thank you for taking time to listen to us. In our next episode, I will take time to elaborate and take you through a journey of how I survived COVID-19. From the day I got my results to my 14 days in isolation to the time I retested and my results came out negative, and to the additional 10 to 14 days again of isolating myself to ensure that the window period has passed and I'm still negative. This is going to be a very interesting journey, and I hope that all of you who are watching us and are going through a similar and related condition will get assistance. And please use the numbers on the screen to call us so that we can help each other to soldier on in this period of this COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you.